right. Just waiting to see if this is working. It says I'm live. Yep, there we go. All right, good afternoon, Cornerstone family. Hope you're having a blessed day. Hope you've had a good day in the Lord today, and hopefully you've had opportunity to read. Today will be Acts chapter 14, as we covered 13 yesterday in the sermon. So if you've not read, sign off and go ahead and jump back and read Acts 14. Come back, it's 28 verses today. Good book, or good chapter rather, as we continue what Paul is doing. Paul and Barnabas' ministry, as we covered that they had kind of worked their way all through different areas on their first missionary journey through Antioch and all that, and they left there and they took kind of a side route to do some ministry, and they faced difficulties and they faced troubles and they faced, like I said, anytime you're following God's plan, expect chaos, and chaos happened for them, and so they had went through and stayed firm to God's word and did some really, really neat things. And, as we dig into Acts 14 today, it has them starting in Iconium, and they entered into a Jewish synagogue as usual, which was kind of their first order strategically was to go into the synagogues to talk to the Jews, to kind of bring the message of God to them first. And they spoke in such a way that a great number of both Jews and Greeks believed. And but what we see here very immediately in the second verse, but a certain number of unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and poisoned their minds against the brothers. A lot of people don't love God's word. And so as God's word started going out, people began to kind of kick back from that a little bit and used words such as poison their mind. So Paul and Barnabas immediately felt some kind of pressure, but the scriptures tells us that they remained there for a long time, even though there was pressure, and they spoke boldly for the Lord, and they bore witness to his word, to the word of his grace, granting signs and wonders done by their hands. So they were doing these great things for the Lord, and they didn't care. That tells me that they stood so much for the truth. They didn't care about the persecution they were facing. They didn't care how the Jews were beginning to poison the minds of the people. They just continued to do what God had called them to do, which was something to commend them for. But they had rose this thing where they were going to mistreat them or possibly stone them. So when they learned of it, they fled to Lystra and Derbe, cities around Laconia and the surrounding country, and they continued to preach the gospel there. They didn't run and they didn't run and go find a hole and climb in and stay in it. They ran and shared the gospel. When they got to Lystra, it was really a neat story. As they come in, it's a Roman colony, and it's presumed that there probably wasn't a synagogue there. And so they did something a little differently. And God used something different other than teaching in the synagogue. You see this in our world today as God uses different avenues to reach people. And so they go in, and there's a man who's crippled and had never walked. People would have known this guy, by the way. They would have known that he had never walked. So Paul walks in, and he comes up to the man that had been lame from birth. This man listened to Paul speak, and after looking directly at him and seeing that he had faith to be healed, Paul said in a loud voice, "Stand up on your feet." And he jumped up and began to walk around. I'm just telling you, if you knew somebody that had been crippled from birth, that just all of a sudden got up and started walking around when they had never had the opportunity to grow the strength in their ankles and their feet and get the coordination it takes to figure out. I mean, we've all, if you have children, have all watched your children try to learn to walk. And the fact that this guy just got up and started walking truly is a testament to God. And so when that happened, people began to get excited, and they started shouting out and saying in the Laconian language, "The gods have come down to us in human form." Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. And the priest of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the town, brought bulls and wreaths to the gates because he intended with the crowds to offer a sacrifice. Isn't that what we do? Sometimes we worship the miracle or we worship the messenger more than we worship the Messiah. They wanted to come down and make an offering at Paul and Barnabas' feet because they performed a miracle that, by the way, they would not have been able to perform without the power of God. Verse 14 tells us that Paul and Barnabas tore their robes when they heard this and rushed in the crowd saying, "People, why are you doing these things? We are people also, just like you. We are proclaiming good news to you. That you turn from these worthless things to the living God who made the heaven, made the earth, the sea, and everything in them." I believe they threw that out there to let them know, like, you're worshiping us for this. We didn't do anything. We come on behalf of the creator of the world. A lot of times you've heard me say that we shouldn't do hero worship. We absolutely shouldn't. Because why? Because the heroes that we worship are fallible. The people that we worship, I remember in 5th or 6th grade, I can't remember which one it was, I was in a play, and we had to stand up and we had to dress like one of our heroes. And honestly, and you may laugh at this right now, but at the time he was super cool. One of my heroes was Jose Canseco. Because Jose Canseco was the first man to hit 40 home runs and steal 40 bases in the same season for the Oakland Athletics. He was a part of the Bash Brothers. It was really cool for a kid like me who loved baseball. Well, I found out later that he had a pretty checkered past, and he had taken some PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, to enable him to be able to do such things. And so, as a child, this hero that I had, that I elevated, crumbled. And that's what people do. That's why we should make sure that if we have a hero, it's Christ. And that's what was going on here. And after they had said these things, it's so interesting how quickly people turn on people. They decided at the end of this, as he went through this teaching, he had said these things, and they barely stopped the crowds from sacrificing to them. Some Jews came from Antioch and Iconium, and they went over the crowd and they stoned them. These guys went from wanting to offer sacrifices to stoning Paul. How quickly we turn, and how sad that is. So they stoned Paul. They thought he was dead and they left him, but he got up after the disciples gathered around, and they went on into different areas later on in the book. You can read from 21 to 28. They're basically going back. They went back through Lystra, Iconium, and into Antioch where they started. And I believe what they've done is they've done church planting. It's a biblical thing. They planted these churches. They've developed disciples. They've kicked it off the ground. And then they went back to Antioch, which is kind of like the center of where they are based out of, to give a report about what God has done. And so their mission is to get the gospel out to places that effective gospel preaching is not happening. And so, moving forward as individuals, as churches, that's something we should consider. Is this something that we need to be doing? And they did, and it was powerful. And that is part of how the gospel has gone viral. So read today. I encourage you, if you have not, this Sunday we're going to do, as I keep ripping this box up, we're going to be doing the Lord's Supper this Sunday, and you can come by the church building and get the juice and the bread that is in there. It comes like that. We will be here for certain on Wednesday night from at least 5 o'clock till 8 or 8:30. But if you drive by, we're here usually during the day, and you'll see my truck on the, directions, on the apartment side of the building. I guess it's the west side. On the east side, you'll see Tony's truck. If you see one of our vehicles here, you'll come knock on the doors, give us a second to get here and collect these for the people that would be in your family, so you could do this online this coming Sunday. Love you guys. Pray the best for you. Stay safe today.